learned this tactic from Eminem that he used in rap, but actually makes sales way more effective. He always used to talk about owning all the negatives. You want to say every negative thing you possibly can about yourself so no one else can. But as salesmen, you can actually stack the deck in your favor using all the negative and then reversing it into positive. Here's how it works. It's all around the word but. Normally, if you've ever heard people are like, oh, he's saying something good, where's the but? Because everyone is trained to emphasize what happens after the word but. But when you're persuading, what you can do is rather than say good thing but bad thing, you flip it. So you say all the bad stuff. Our program's really long, it's very difficult, it's complex, but it works better than anything else you've ever tried. The second half of the sentence becomes magnified because of the damaging admissions that but amplified.
All right, Alex Hormozy, I guess is how you say it. He's actually somebody that I have a good amount of respect for. I think he's done some really good stuff. He's grown some good businesses. He's put out some good content. And I think his point here is valid. You don't want to try and make a sale by just talking about the good things and hoping people don't necessarily notice the downsides or the drawbacks. It is helpful to be able to say, here's what we do and here's what we don't do, or here's what we can't do, or here's the reason that some people choose not to work with us or buy our service or buy our product. One, because if it's really not a good fit, then you don't want people to buy it and then be unhappy or disappointed or have their expectations unmet, and now they're leaving you a bad review or they're canceling your service or whatever the case, right? You want to be clear on what you can and can't do, so hopefully the people that work with you or buy your product are the ones that are the best fit for it. But also, if somebody's trying to decide, it's better to be out in front of what their potential objections are going to be, which is basically what he's talking about. In sales, you give somebody the reasons that you think they should buy, and then you come up with, yeah, but this, but the price is too high, the guarantee isn't good enough, the process takes too long, it doesn't come in black, I wanted it in red, or whatever. If you have an answer for those objections, then you can overcome that resistance and potentially still make the sale. What he's suggesting is just before they even get a chance to say, yeah, but this, yeah, but that, you line it all up and bring it out in the open so they don't even have the chance to use that objection. Whether they say it or not, they might say, I'm not interested, because one of those reasons that you didn't bring up and hoping they weren't. If you bring it up to begin with, then if they were thinking it, you've addressed it. If they were going to say it, you've already answered it. And it hopefully gets to the point where at least when they make a decision to go ahead or not, they have no reservations, they have no reason to hold back because everything's been talked about. So I think he has a good point in the sales process, in trying to convince somebody of something or trying to explain something. It doesn't hurt to bring up what might be perceived as negatives or drawbacks, address them, give reasons for them, give differentiators, and then people can make a decision with all the information instead of just hoping that they overlook it or don't think about the bad things that other people might have said or that might occur to them after the fact.
If I was to ask you, which is more important, opening the business up and setting it up to open it up, or branding and positioning? If you answered branding and positioning, then you are well on your way to success in business. You see, most people do not spend enough time in branding and positioning so that when their business starts, it actually starts making money right away. And instead, they do it by trial and error. And when they open up their business, because they haven't spent enough time in branding and positioning, they're actually they're competing is on price. And that is a downward spiral, because there will always be someone that has a lower price than you.
Okay, so his claim is setting up your brand and your position is more important than setting up, say, the company structure, checking account, EIN number, sales tax permit, whatever else. I agree in the sense that I think it's really important to know who your customer is going to be and what you're going to offer them that's different than your competition. So I agree more on the positioning side than the brand, right? What the brand name is and the colors and the logo design, I don't think are critical. But understanding who your customer is and what choices they have when they're considering a business and what you can offer that would make them pick you, aside from just, hey, but we're the cheapest. That is important, and that is worth thinking about, and that is worth understanding before you go into the business, what you're going to offer that people are going to say, hey, that's the person I want to work with, or that's the business I want to do business with, not just because they offer the lowest price, but because they offer the best value or the best fit for my specific need versus something more generic or something less specialized that isn't as good of a fit for my exact circumstance. So positioning, yes. Branding, not as much. And business setup, that really only has to happen after you figured it out and start doing business. You don't need to set up all the structure of the business first and then try to figure out what your business is going to do or if it's even going to work.
Small business owners will think that their business is shit, but the reality is that they just haven't built a brand, because a brand is the reason why people buy from a business. So a lot of small business owners will think that the problem is them. They'll think that the problem is their product. They'll think that the problem is price, or it's oversaturated, or no one actually wants to buy what they have to offer. But the problem is that they just haven't built a brand to convince that audience type that what they have to offer is valuable.
Okay, I disagree with this in most cases. Maybe your product does suck. Maybe your prices aren't good. Maybe you haven't put enough effort in. Maybe your customers really don't want what you're selling. It may also be that you didn't create a good brand, but that isn't necessarily the first place I would look. You could create a horrible product that nobody wants and then spend a fortune designing an amazing logo and doing all kinds of branding to really put your stamp on that product. But it's still a crappy product that nobody wants. So what good did that do you? Yes, it's helpful to have a brand, but in one of the other videos we did recently where we're talking about branding and positioning, I think positioning is the much more important piece of that. That is finding the segment of customers who you are most aligned with, who most want your product the specific way that you offer it at the price and way you do it, and figuring that out and mastering your positioning in the market for the product or service that you're selling, that's the most important thing to do. And that will help you determine the price and the color and the way you sell it and the features that it has and the marketing you do and also the brand. But you can't brand something that's otherwise crap and just because you have a brand, expect that suddenly that's going to fix it. So it's not that your business does or doesn't suck. It may suck, it may not, but having a brand, stapling a brand onto an otherwise sucky business is not going to fix it necessarily. So figure out the positioning and the market space you're in and the customers and what they want to buy and why they want to buy it, and all those things will help you then establish your position and build a brand. But just saying the reason your business isn't doing well is because you haven't spent enough time on branding really misses the whole point of what the business is setting out to try and do. Brand is the part that establishes what the business is about, but the business needs to know that first, not after the fact.
Hire an employee. You want to be charging for their services 3x what you're paying them, at least. You're going to bring in gross revenue of, let's say, $100. You want a third of that to go to labor, a third of that to go to overhead, and a third of that to go to profit. With that said, you're going to make sure you have an employment agreement. Then you're going to have an employee handbook. You're going to set up a payroll procedure and an ADP for payroll. And then the big one is you're going to have a training program.
So I agree with some of what he says. Working backwards, there's no point in hiring somebody if you aren't able to train them on what you want them to do. Even if you're hiring somebody who has experience in the thing that you're hiring them for. You're hiring somebody for a plumbing position at your plumbing company and they've been a plumber for 10 years. That doesn't mean they know everything about how you want your plumbing business to operate. Maybe they're used to doing a job where they run to Home Depot 5 times in order to complete the job, and it takes 6 hours to change out a garbage disposal. And you want them to do one trip, right? Go there, figure out the issue, get everything in one shot, get it done, and be done in 2 hours. So even though you're hiring an experienced plumber, you have a way that you want them to work. And the only way they're gonna know that is if you train them. And the only way that's gonna happen is if you have a training program. It doesn't have to be, super formal with videos and handbooks and all kinds of stuff, but you should have something in place where you convey the information you want them to know about how to work at your business in a way that they can absorb and then you can hold them accountable to, right? If you just get mad at them because they took 6 hours on a plumbing job, but you never told them you want it done in 2, then how are they supposed to know, right? And the way they find out shouldn't be you yelling at them. It should be you telling them and setting expectations before you even send them on that very first job. Backing up a step, they say ADP. I say, I don't know if I'd go with ADP. We have other payroll providers that we'd recommend over ADP. My big gripe with ADP is they're a huge company, so customer service is often spotty, and they use commissioned salespeople to sell their payroll services. Anytime you're dealing with someone who's a commissioned salesperson, that ought to immediately tell you there's a lot of margin in that price in order to be able to pay fat commissions and send their people on trips to the Caribbean and to Hawaii and whatever. Their top performers get all kinds of perks. Well, who's paying for those perks? You are, with the prices that they're charging you. So I think there's better options out there. Absolutely, if you have employees, you should have a payroll system set up so you can pay them correctly. You should have an employee handbook so they understand their roles and requirements and what you're providing and all that stuff. All good. Do payroll right. If you're going to have an employee, even one employee, spend some time to make sure you do it right. Back to his original point that an employee should be charged 3 times whatever you pay them. Maybe yes, maybe no. It depends what job they're doing and how much you're charging. What if you could get 10 times what you're paying them from your customer? Why would you only charge 3 times then, right? You would charge 10 times. If that's what the value of what they're providing is, then charge 10 times. On the other hand, maybe the going rate is only 2 times what you're paying your employee. Well, you could try to charge more, but you're probably going to get a lot of no's. Maybe you have to make it work with only 2 times, but maybe that's okay because your overhead might not be 33%. Maybe it's only 5%. So these generalizations are okay as a starting point, but you really have to know your business, your market, your customers, and the value you're providing. Don't undercharge or overcharge. Charge what the right number is, and then make sure it works for your business with your costs and your structure.